Hi, welcome back to the Delaware State Senate Republican Caucus weekly wrap-up video. This is week 15. I'm State Senator Brian Pettyjohn.
And I'm Matt Revel, Director of Policy and Communications for the Delaware State Senate Republican Caucus.
It's good to be here, Matt.
Yeah, good to be here.
Wrapping everything up now, and exciting legislative session. A lot happened, and looking forward to talking to you and everybody else out there about kind of a wrap-up of what happened.
Absolutely, and that obviously, like you said, we're going to wrap up, but I think we're also going to do a preview of 2022. So we'll kind of touch on some of the legislation that we've discussed in previous videos, but also kind of get Senator Pettyjohn your thoughts on what to expect next year.
And also for you, just a little bit of background of how things work. Even though we're out of this legislative session, that doesn't mean that bills that didn't get moved on this time aren't still alive. There's a lot of dynamics that go on with the legislature and how we do our work and kind of the mechanics of going from one year to another. So, want to touch on this. Might be a little bit of a longer video this time just because we're going to cover a lot of things. But, I just think it's a great idea for everybody to be as informed as possible about what we do and how we do it and why we do some of the things that we do.
Well, speaking of the legislation that's going to carry over, some of the big topics that we had discussed about a couple weeks ago in videos, Senate Bill 3, Permit to Purchase Bill, a little update on that. It actually is still in the House, in the House Appropriations Committee, has not been released. So that's going to be carrying over into 2022. Senate Bill 6, which was the magazine limit capacity ban, if you ask, it did pass the House, but it was heavily amended.
Heavily modified in the House, and so it got sent back over to the Senate. A bill has to pass both chambers in the exact same form for it to go to the governor. So, the Senate passed it, sent it over to the House amended it, came back over to the Senate, and as of June 30th, as of the end of the first half of the 151st General Assembly, the Senate did not take that measure back up again. So, it is not law, even though it's passed both chambers, it's got to pass the Senate again, and if the Senate amends it and sends it back to the House, then the House would have to pass it as amended by the Senate. So it could be ping-ponging back and forth. Not quite sure what the sponsors' intentions are for that bill, but we'll probably know a little bit more and have some more clarity on it come January.
And we'll be sure to keep everyone updated on that as it comes back. Another bill that everyone's talking about, Senate Bill 15, was $15 minimum wage. It did pass the House. Passed the House unamended, but there were a slew of amendments that were introduced, none of which passed. So we can expect to see that likely signed by the governor shortly and go into effect, I guess, incrementally up until 2024.
2024, I believe, as provisions of the bill. Yes.
So that's kind of a wrap up of the big ones that our caucus largely opposed. But some that we supported and some very good legislation that came out of our caucus. Well, why don't you give us an update on yours? Senate Bill 65 passed.
Okay, Senate Bill 65. That was actually passed by the Senate in the last week before the General Assembly ended, and I believe it passed on Wednesday over the House. So it's actually ready for the governor's signature now. So we'll be working with the governor's office, try to coordinate something where we can have a signing ceremony. I'd really like to have some of the beneficiaries of this bill and some of the ones that have been helping me through this process present. Of course, some high school students, some rising seniors would be great to have there. And I'd also like to get guidance counselors in there because it's really the guidance counselors that are going to be letting the students know about this opportunity. One of the concerns that we had from Department of Labor when we were having the hearings on FAST was that, well, how are they going to advertise this? Well, the best advertisement is just letting the guidance counselors know so they can drive the students, because this is intended for students. This isn't for adults, people that have been out the workforce. This is Senate Bill 65 FAST is intended for students. And allowing students that are coming out of high school to have that opportunity for that type of training. So getting the guidance counselors, getting the schools, public and private schools involved, and charter schools, I think is going to be very important, and making sure the guidance counselors know and can direct students to this program.
And so once signed by the governor, does this go into effect immediately, or what's the process?
There's got to be rules and regulations that are developed by the Department of Labor. So they have to get those done. That's why I kind of want to have the bill signed as soon as possible so they can work on that. They have up to a year to implement the regulations around this, and I hope to be working with the Department of Labor in developing those those guidelines rapidly, because I would really like to have students, come the spring, have this as an option for them, so we can take advantage of it.
And well, thank you for that update.
Yeah.
I know that's a very important piece of legislation. It's going to have positive effects for our economy. It's been a struggling. Our economy's been struggling in the sense that it's really hard to find skilled blue collar labor.
I mean, this program is going to be transformative to so many young adults that are coming out of high school, to allow them to get that training so they can go right into the workforce pretty much, and earn a good living for themselves and their families. I mean, this is going to be, this is going to be one of those bills that is going to affect many, many lives in a very positive way, and help our economy and help grow really that middle class. That's really what we're trying to do is to get these middle class workers, these blue collar workers, these skilled workers that are out there, and not just blue collar. I mean, we're talking about computer programming. You don't necessarily need a college degree for computer programming. You can take this, and one of the programs that was out there is Zip Code Wilmington. And, it's a private institution that teaches you how to do coding. Well, as long as the Workforce Development Board adds Zip Code Wilmington to one of their list of providers, this is going to be something that's available to those people as well. So, this isn't just for the wrench turners. This is really, for, any type of skilled type profession that's out there. Whether it's a trade, whether it's somebody that's working in a computer coding, or networking or telephony, some of these things that you need these certificates for. So it's going to help a lot of people out. I'm really excited about it.
Another piece of pro-economy legislation, pro-market, was Senate Bill 46. Quick update on that. It's not really one that we had touched on in previous videos, but it was introduced by Senator Lawson, and it allows for an establishment such like a wedding venue, if you will, to apply for a bottle club license, and to allow outside people bring in alcohol and other beverages and stuff that that business may not actually be. It may not be part of their everyday operation. Right,
and you do have a lot of venues, the smaller venues, that don't want to go through the process of getting their own liquor license, because it is expensive, and for a lot of them it is prohibitive. So to allow a catering company or something like that to come in that has one of those licenses to be able to come in and provide the alcohol for these parties, events, weddings, retirement parties, fundraisers, whatever it is going to be good. I talked to a number of caterers that have been running into those problems, and so this is going to solve. And again, we're solving a problem that exists, not trying to create legislation around a problem that's really not there.
And another final piece of legislation that we wanted to update you on was Senator Wilson's Senate Bill 106 that redefines homeschool to allow homeschool students to be able to access certain services such as speech pathology services and stuff. That, I believe, when we last recorded, when we interviewed Senator Wilson, that had just cleared the House Education Committee, but it's now passed the House and waiting the governor's signature.
Yeah, and again, I remember the original impetus was for speech pathologists, but as we delved into this, and this happens a lot with legislation, as we delved into it, we found out that there are more services as well that could benefit from this really small code change within Delaware code. So looking forward to a lot of the benefits from this legislation from Senator Wilson, and the passion that he's had really for this. And again, it's something that came out of a constituent concern.
And so I guess aside from just legislation, looking back at 2021, the first half of the 151st General Assembly, what's your general takeaway from just kind of how everything shook out? And now that we're at the time of this recording, about a week removed from
right.
What are your thoughts on the session?
Well, we started off the session a little rough, and really I think a lot of it was we weren't there in person. And, there were a lot of controversial bills that had committee hearings. The committee hearings were kind of truncated and in a virtual setting. A lot of people who feel that their voices weren't heard in some of those committee processes. As we move into the second half of the General Assembly, I expect that we're going to continue virtual, but augmenting it with the in-person. In-person should be the default always. But I will say that we have had record number of people that have been viewing and watching what we have been doing, during the committee hearings and through the work that we're doing on the floor. So I think, and I've always been a proponent of additional access through technology, but not replacing the in-person experience, which is so vital to us as legislators. It's important for us to be face-to-face with the constituents, with the people that have concerns about some of these pieces of legislation that we're passing through. But also, I think it's important that we keep that channel open with the online, just so that people who aren't able to make it to Dover for a committee hearing are able to see what's going on and participate in the process as well. So, my first part of that takeaway was, like the access, I wish it was more, especially in person. And we moved through a lot of very controversial things right at the beginning. And that was kind of taken care of, within the first, few weeks of legislative session. We hit a lot of these controversial things. The second half of it has been probably somewhat less controversial legislation. But still some very important legislation that's going through. We've had some good debate on legislation, both on legislation that we support and that we oppose. And we've made our position clear, and we've got ourselves on the record with a lot of different issues right now.
Senator, so you mentioned that early on in the session, a lot of the more controversial and heavy-hitting pieces of legislation seemed to be fast-tracked through the Senate.
Yeah.
Like you said, when we were completely virtual.
Yeah,
but
such as SB3 and SB6 type of thing, yeah.
Right, well, and the House, interestingly, actually put up the speed bumps to that.
Yeah. It's interesting. Usually it's the Senate that takes its time and is more deliberative on bills. Whether it's a controversial bill or a non-controversial bill. It seemed like this year, though, with the quick passage of some of these measures in the Senate, the House actually took more time, had longer committee hearings on some of these controversial bills, and went through and were more deliberative on some of these measures. So it's an interesting dynamic between the House and the Senate this year. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out moving forward into the second half of the 151st.
Well, and to your point, Senate Bill 3 and 6 actually had separate committee hearings.
Yeah, over in the House.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, those bills actually had one committee hearing in the Senate, and I think it was an hour, maybe more, maybe an hour or two. Yeah. But over in the House, each of those bills had their own separate committee day and committee hearing, long committee hearings. It was interesting, and I think part of it was a little bit of a lesson learned from what happened in the Senate and the negative feedback that we've got from the public on that process. That's why the House did it separately or did it differently. But again, people were complaining. A lot of people's voices were heard that they didn't think they had the time or the opportunity to speak on those bills. So when the committee chair over in the House got that feedback, it made those committee hearings longer and allowed some more people to be able to participate in that process. And it really, at the end of the day, it's all about making sure people's voices are going to be heard. especially in this committee process, which is the part of the process that's designed to get the input from the people.
Moving into the new year, 2022, what kind of legislation do you think our caucus should be focused on?
Well, there's going to be a lot that could happen between now and January when we go back in. So as we are getting feedback from our constituencies, of course, we'll be starting to consider taking some of those ideas and craft them into legislation. But really, making sure that Delaware is a competitive pro-business state. That we're in the position to bring new businesses here into Delaware and support the businesses that we already have. We've got to grow our economy. We've got to broaden our economy. So whatever steps we need to take to do that, I think is going to be incumbent upon us to do that. Also, we need to tackle some of the issues around crime. We just recently passed a bill for cash bail for certain serious offenses. That's going to be implemented within a few weeks. But, as we're looking at the crimes that are being prosecuted, how we are putting people back on the streets, and if those people that we are releasing on the streets either in a pretrial condition or after they've served their sentence, we need to have a good tracking to see whether our criminal justice system is doing a good job in correcting those behaviors, rather than it just be a system that's punishing people for the wrongs that they have done. So we need to start looking at some good data on those things as well. Public safety is always key. People want to be able to feel safe in their homes, in their neighborhoods, in their communities, in their towns here in Delaware. So, as we're looking at things that are happening, if we have to make legislative adjustments, that's something that, we should always be looking to do. There are a lot of issues that we have. Here in our area, one of the things that we're hearing about a lot is access to health care. We have more and more doctors that are going into concierge. A lot of that has to do with reimbursement rates that they're getting through healthcare, through insurance, and through Medicaid. So those are some of the things that, as we see some of the effects of the bills that we're passing, we need to be watching it. We need to be watching those effects and making sure that they align with what the expectations were. And if they don't, we need to make slight adjustments. That's just a few of the many issues that are out there right now. But I'm sure there's going to be more things that, in talking to constituents and going to events this summer and through the fall, Apple Scrapple being one. I always get a lot of ideas from people at Apple Scrapple for different things. And some of the other events, we're having Wings of Wheels here again in Georgetown. Netticoke Powwow, which is actually going to a new location. But as we talk to people and are out in the community and having meetings with people, we get some of these ideas for legislation. So those are some of the few things that I'm sure we're going to be addressing come January.
So now we're done until January, right?
No, not really.
Okay.
So normally we would, at the House especially, the House doesn't normally come in for any special sessions between June and January. The Senate normally does for confirmation if there's a gubernatorial confirmation, whether it's for cabinet members or judges or any of the other offices that require Senate concurrence on a nomination. But both the House and the Senate are going to have to come in this fall for redistricting. So of course, every 10 years we have to redraw the district lines based on the census. Normally we get that information in the late spring so that we're able to craft the new district lines and get everything passed before June 30th comes. But because of some issues that happened with the last census, COVID being one, new data formats, a lot of other changes over on the federal level for the census, we haven't got that information yet. So we're going to have to come back in for a special session. I think we're expected to get the information from the Census Bureau, I believe, in August, late August.
Mid-August, yeah.
Middle to late August. So once we get that data, we have to start crafting the maps. Where the district lines are going to be. So we expect to see some interesting changes here in Sussex County.
There are some tools out there where literally anybody can go make their own map.
Right? It's actually pretty exciting. I think this is
and then submit it for essentially like public comment.
Yeah. There are a lot of free websites out there, and one that I keep just comes to mind just because the name is Dave's Redistricting. And so once the granular data comes in from the Census Bureau, I think they're going to go ahead and import that into their system, and then anybody can go in and create an account on Dave's Redistricting and draw their own maps and submit it to us as a suggestion. There's that website especially has different tools that you can do compactness, or there's a lot of different criteria that you can use to either draw your own maps or have it automatically generate a map for you based on certain criteria. So in terms of the public process and the access the public's going to have to the redistricting, I think this year is going to be probably one of the most open years that we've ever had.
Well, Senator, thank you for those updates. This is pretty cool, I think, little segment and little added communication that we added to our Facebook and YouTube, and just to get our message out there.
And this is something that even while we're off session, we're not going to do it on a regular basis, but as things come up, or as we get different types of feedback from you, we'll be out there and we'll make some videos, really for informational purposes as to what's going on. But the involvement is key, and I was on the radio this morning with Mike Bradley on WGMD, and one of the things we were talking about was public engagement and the engagement of our constituents, and it's extremely important for the people that we represent to be contacting us and to keep that open dialogue with us, whether we're in session or whether we're out of session. Just that communication is key. So, we use this as one of our platforms to communicate out to you, but you also need to communicate back to us as well with different issues that you have, different ideas, because believe me, and I've always been a believer in this, we got a lot of smart people out there. We've got a lot of smart constituents, and you get everybody together to solve problems, you can get some really good ideas to solve some serious problems that we have here within our state.
And the contact information for all the legislators, not just in our caucus, but it was on the Delaware General Assembly website for our caucus. It's on there, but it's also on our caucus's website, www.Delaware.Senate.com.
Yep.
Be sure to check that out.
Links to that will be here in the video or in the comments somewhere.
Right? Then also
here, there, I don't know, wherever Matt decides to put them on the screen.
But also sign up for our senators' newsletters on our YouTube video. If you're watching on there, it'll be in the description below. Various forms of social media. Every TikTok account now, I don't know.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, interesting. China's watching. Fun things like that. Maybe we can get Senator Pettyjohn to do a dance.
I don't know about that.
Anyway, thank you for following along this year. I can't stress enough how important it is to hear from you, for the senators to get feedback, hear your concerns, answer your questions, things of that nature. So be sure to reach out. I guess until next time, whenever that may be.
Appreciate it, Matt, and I appreciate all the work that you've put into this. I mean, Matt is the one, he kind of sits here and everything, and we kind of go back and forth with questions, but after all this is over, he takes the memory cards from that camera, and sometimes another camera, and
when I remember to bring it,
when he remembers to bring stuff in, and does all the post-production editing and stuff like that. And Matt, you've done a great job. You've really stepped up the communication to our constituents, and on behalf of all of the senators that we have in our caucus, I want to thank you for all that you've done. It has not gone unnoticed, believe me. And I'll just finally say that imitation is the highest form of flattery, and some of the things that we've done, other people have started to do as well, because it is so effective, and we're doing a great job. Thanks to you communicating to all of you as our constituents out there.
Thank you, Senator.
Absolutely.
And thank you, everyone. Like I said, see you next time.
Take care.